you so, so much. If you guys have been on, welcome to the 9th Annual Connect Forward 2020. I'm so honored. My name is Alex Patrón. I'm a senior UX and UI designer who's a big research nerd, and I actually started in development. So I am a designer, but I'm always kind of coming over to my developers and asking them, what are you guys working on? So I think I'm a little bit different, but it is, like I said, it's a huge honor to be speaking tonight, and really an even bigger honor to be a part of Women Who Code. As me and Kat were talking, it's an incredible community that brings the digital world just together. So a huge, huge honor. So we're gonna start with lifestyle guides, and let's bring it way back, because before lifestyle guides, there are style guides. And really, style guides are the foundation of everything digital that gets built. It's a playbook. It dictates brand design for your entire company or your digital space. It lets you know which are the hex codes you want to look at, which are your primaries, which are your secondaries, all of your neutrals, any kind of semantics you might have, maybe your error reds, your warning oranges, your success screens, all of that. Looking at typography, it's all of your headers, your H1s through H5s, 6s, and so on. And even beyond that, it's looking at spacing, padding, all of those crucial CSS things. But beyond that, what style guides really get to do is establish the brand identity. And this oftentimes comes through in your tone. Is your digital space inviting? Is it really clinical? Is it kind of goofy and like guiding people along? Is it your friend? I think tone is probably one of the biggest things that it envelops your whole digital space. It also touches on iconography. And one of the most important things, it also talks about accessibility levels, making sure that you're spending all this time working on these incredible, beautiful digital spaces, make sure everyone can use them. And paramount, the biggest piece of them all, visual consistency. No matter what, when you look at Twitter, it's always got that Twitter blue. Make sure everything looks the same. And that's really the biggest value of this. So I want to kind of look at some brand guidelines, and I decided to kind of look at this brand, NASA. You guys might have heard of them, little company, but NASA has a Pantone. They have a hex code for NASA red, and they have their grays, their silvers, their blacks, and they have an ubiquitous logo. It can be identified anywhere. You almost don't even have to read it to know those smooth curves. And another thing that brand guidelines do is it allows the designers to explain the reasoning behind these designs. Here you see there's so much to the NASA logo that even me, I didn't know all these pieces were involved in it and how meaningful it is. I'm gonna take a minute to stop and look at that because it's pretty impressive. It's a really cool logo. But another thing that brand guidelines do is let you know what to not do. And if you're looking at this, you're like, whoa, what happened here? Who like just went crazy on these? And this may look like an exaggeration, but when you weren't part of the original process, it's really easy to start wondering like, oh, maybe I can add this or make subtle changes that ultimately may or may not spin out of control. And here we've got 8, but there's a lot more ways you can mess it up. And it sounds like maybe something happened at NASA. Another thing it does is it allows for just explaining placement. And I mean, if you need to put your logo on your space shuttle, this is super, super important. Gotta look at this document. Or maybe even your telescope. These are important things. You need to document these things. And this is where a brand guideline is extremely helpful. It's a resource, and above all, it guides everyone who is creating, designers, developers, and so on, to kind of just be able to live in the same environment. And without design systems, well, bad things can happen. Really bad things can happen. So I'm going to tell you a little story, really quick story. David woke up on Monday and he had an email from Shannon. And Shannon said, I opened the screen door and my cat Missy got out. She's been missing. Could you please, please, please make a poster for me? It has to be A4. I'll photocopy it and I'll put it around my neighborhood. Thank you, Shannon. Now this seems straightforward. This seems really straightforward. It's just a missing poster, you know, missing, reward, answers to Missy, picture of the cat. Straightforward, right? Anyone can do it. Super easy. Super easy. Maybe not super easy. Why is that cat so small? What is going on? Why does this look like this? That's not what I was looking for. What is this, a poster? Why is the cat so small? What's going on? I thought this was gonna be easy. And things can get out of control really, really quickly. Like this, or this, or this. Wait, whose cat is this? Wait, what? No, this isn't right. Okay, that was the cat, but that's, no, I don't think so. I don't think. And this is just a cautionary tale. This actually happened. This is totally real, but it gives you kind of an exaggerated look at the idea that teams, there's a lot of different hands reaching into projects, and everyone can have a different way of looking at this missing cat poster. And these are just possible opportunities for designs to change. And one thing, now that we're living in post-pandemic life, everyone is remote, everyone is siloed and working on separate projects for the same company. So it's very, very easy for meaning, design rules, everything can get misconstrued and slightly adjusted. It's almost like playing a really complicated game of telephone. And this is where lifestyle guides come into play. And these documents all come together and become alive in a lifestyle guide. That's the name, ironically. But the way I like to think of it as an analogy is these are Lego pieces. You have your search bar Lego piece, you have your input, and now we can all bring these to life. It's a visual guide, and it takes your brand theme. So like I said, we've got that NASA red, and then we apply it to all these UI components, and we put it all together into a development toolkit. It becomes what I like to call a living architecture, because when you make an adjustment, it trickles down, and everywhere where that original was adjusted, you see it happen and ripple down. They're UI blocks, UI elements. And all of these blocks, as I said before, if it's a search and so on, they contain all the CSS style, but it also contains the code of functionality. So it's kind of an all-in-one little piece. There are things like accordions, carousels, your search bars, cards. Everything on your page is a UI element when you think about it. And a really good example, kind of to show you what it looks like, here we have a brand palette where we've established the primary is this nice bright blue, and then secondary is this kind of more muted, darker blue, and then the extended palette, and then you'll have neutrals and your semantics. And there you have it. You have these beautiful blues applied to everything, and you have your grays and so on. But let's say you decide to change it to green, then everything changes, and every button on your page that's been specified as a primary becomes that green color. You can change as you go along. It's kind of, honestly, it's an incredible piece of technology. And another thing is, you think about it, these are reusable components. And one of the greatest things is that it reduces code complexity in so many different ways by keeping things consistent. Here you see kind of all the UI components, you got sidebars, tabs, all those pieces that kind of just fall into place and become part of your screen. And of course, again, kind of reminding you that it's consistency that makes this amazing, because we're all remote right now, and being able to build something that is part of the same design language it's priceless. It makes everything look way more put together and just way better. And something that's really, really amazing is customers who have adopted lifestyle guides have reported incredible increases in digital production, because really once you have these style guides put together, it's just implementation. It's just about deciding what is your goal and how do you put it together, because you've already got the pieces. So I want to thank you all so much. It's, like I said, a huge honor. I've been part of Women Who Code for years, and it's surreal to be able to do this. So thank you so much. And I'm going to open up to questions.
Loved it, Alex. I'm over here, and I myself don't come from a designer background. So learning about the lifestyle guides, I'm like, every person in every organization needs to have one of these if they don't already. Looking at the questions right now, we did have one come in here, and the question was, who usually creates the style guides? The designers, management, who would be the point of contact for that?
That's an excellent question, because it's really about responsibility. So me as a designer, a lot of times, since I'm brought on, clients have branding that's created. So it's about the marketing team, the branding team. So let's give the example of NASA again. NASA has an established brand. They have their bright red and their blues. So I talk to NASA, and they'll give me those documents. And then from there, I'm able to go into the lifestyle guide and make all the custom edits. I can change the roundness of the buttons, the shadows, put in that NASA red. So it's really about your team, but most of the times I have the benefit of working with the designers and the branding team from the company that wants to create a lifestyle guide. Yeah.
Awesome. And it looks like one of the comments is also kind of going along with what you were just saying here. Love having style guides as a dev. Component design is super helpful. And I think this really appeals to you, the developer side of you that you were mentioning earlier in our talk here, for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, I respect developers so much, because it's not the space I belong into. But being able to make lifestyle guides allows me to, like I said, it's like you have the Lego bucket you like flip over, and you have your search bar, you have your inputs, you have your accordions, and being able to see developers grab stuff and rapidly develop things is incredible, because you never have to really worry about saying, like, I will QA something, but I never have to say, like, hey, the spacing is a little off. Those like really nitpicky things I feel so bad about commenting on. This, I don't know, it's like a big weight off your shoulders. You're like, oh, I don't have to bug you about that. That's amazing. I think lifestyle guides, if I were to say like an overarching thing, is if you have a lot of digital properties, you have a lot of different pages, a lot of web apps, it's super helpful. Consistency is king. That's ultimately what it comes down to. So
I'm going to have to tweet that: consistency, everyone here. I'm going to make that my header and everything after.
Consistency.
One more question did actually come in here for you. And the question was, can you talk a bit about the process of developing a style guide from scratch? How does one go about making a completely new one?
Ooh. So I'm gonna give a little bit of a disclaimer. Again, I am not a developer. I play with like Arduinos. So I'm not, I don't make pages. I don't develop for web. But from what I have seen, and like, again, it's a privilege to like be able to like watch this thing like get built. It's amazing. But it's very similar to Bootstrap. Bootstrap is what it's based on. That's kind of like the foundation of how it was created. So really it's just about, the CSS becomes the foundation for everything that does get built. So I cannot dive into absolute technicality. So I'm so sorry. I should have had like a developer like sidekick like panel over. Shoot, next time.
Ooh. I was going to say I would love to hear kind of having someone like yourself and then a developer side by side, that relationship. How do you guys work in a day to day, and how do you guys talk about the challenges? And I think for you, if you have any tips for people on how they work with developers, what would be some tips you could give them when you're working with someone that's maybe just joining your organization, and how do you establish a really good relationship from the very beginning?
That I can absolutely talk to, because I've worked with a lot of different people when it comes to creating the lifestyle guide, because, you know, like I said, the teams vary. There's always different people with clients. So as far as my role working with developers, one thing I think is super important is the developer who is creating this is a front end wizard. They are really, really good at CSS. So it's important for me to give good documentation. And that's where I had the screen that had the colors all laid out. It's really important to be able to show the range of everything. So having that be kind of like a standard is really important. It's honestly, it's a lot like riding a bike. Like you learn a process and it kind of, you know, gets easier as you go. But at least for me, there are clients that have really complex branding guidelines that, you know, they have really nice rounded edges and like have like super intense branding, like material design and, you know, iOS. So with custom situations, that's one where I will sit with a developer and kind of let them know like, hey, there are additional things to consider. You know, maybe there's like an animation or an interaction that stands out and is a little bit different. So it's like with everything where you have special considerations, you need to, you know, communicate them. So besides consistency, I'd say like communication is the really big one.
Oh, you're like touching on like, I feel like you need a third C on advice. You have consistency here on your lap. You have communication. We'll think of another one by the end of this talk. I'll give you some time in the meanwhile. We did have one more question come in here. And it's someone saying, I'm a designer and the developers I work with don't like to use style guides. They prefer to use the code snippets from Figma. Do you think that's better? Ooh. And I'll let you answer that one there.
That's a super interesting one, because yeah, developers want to, you know, you learn something, you want to stay where you're really comfortable. So I absolutely understand that. And you know what? You can create a style guide in Figma. Yeah, so I was gonna say that's actually, I think that's like the best of both worlds. And I will also say that if you are not using Figma, a tool that I really like is InVision, where I'm able to inspect anything. Any tool you're using, you can inspect on. Quick plug for InVision because they are awesome. But yeah, there's always workarounds. That's kind of, yeah, that's the name of the game for all of us, I think.
Yeah, and we even had someone in here saying, as a dev, I prefer style guides over, you know, fun snippets. So it just depends on the relationship and the team and the project that you're working on. So it completely makes sense to and complementary to what you were saying here, Alex, as well. I'm curious from here to hear how you actually got started and dove into the world of design here. For those of you that may be joining us here a bit later, Alex is actually one of my colleagues here at a company we work in together, OutSystems. And I remember slacking her one of these days, and I saw that her Slack message said UX UI wizardry, and it had the lightning symbol in it. So I'm curious about how you got into the design space here.
Honestly, it totally was like a lightning bolt, because I wanted to get into sustainability and I was having a really hard time kind of breaking into it. I think all of us can relate to entry level really means 3 years of college, and there's no such thing as entry level. It is a invented thing that doesn't make sense. But I was documenting a course at SCAD, the Savannah College of Art and Design, and it was to create a robot vending machine. So I was able, it was amazing. It was so cool. It had like stock market. So depending on if a lot of people bought Cheetos. Cheetos became more expensive, and it had the servos to pull it. But because of that, I discovered UX design, and it's one of those things that UX design is so obvious and integrated in everything you do that it's hard to even like really understand it tangibly. But it's a space of research. It's a space of psychology where human-centered design, you're able to kind of break things down and kind of put it into a science. And I thought, I mean, to me, that was like, hey, this is something so obvious and so necessary. And if there's anything I can say is people who don't know what career path they should go into, I highly recommend this space because it's incredibly rewarding. You're constantly problem solving. There's so much critical thinking involved. And honestly, it feels like you're solving a really cool puzzle a lot of times. Yes, UX rules. Yes, totally. So I love my job, which sounds totally corny and cliche, but it's such a rewarding space when you're able to help someone get their goals, nailed down. It's an amazing space. So
that's awesome. And you're already having some fans here. They're loving your humor. They're loving your passion for UX. So kudos to you. Snaps for you here, Miha. But overall, the one more that came into our chat here is comment / question here. The respect I have for designers is massive. Alex, I've tried several times to learn design. It just seems my creative insides are dead. I'm very terrible at choosing colors, layouts, and the rest. Do you have any ideas? How can I improve on that?
You know what? That's funny. I was actually talking to someone about that because they were saying, I don't have an art style. I don't have aesthetic taste. And I was like, wait, slow down. UX, UI is interface design. But as I said before, let's like call back NASA. If I was working for them, they would hand me a document that said, this is NASA red. These are our constraints. So there is a lot of creativity in the problem solving because, NASA is asking me to build a new launcher. So I need to figure out how to get to that. But as far as being concerned about creativity and, being artistic, that can be part of it, but you need to that comment, there is so much science behind it. So every time I do a project, and this is where developers do very similar things, I do a lot of research. So if I'm designing a retail process, I look at who has invested the most money in retail design. I'm like, eBay's got a ton of money. They've worked hard on this. How can I take the best pieces of that and bring it on to my client? So looking at competitor research, like I said, it's an absolute science as far as putting things together. So do not stress about, your aesthetic abilities or artistic things. That's for graphic designers. That's for the branding people, and good on them, because that is really hard. And I feel the same way. I have a super hard time with that. So I would say look into human-centered design, look at best practices. That's really where you learn UX. And again, it's a lot about research. So whether it's doing A/B testing once you build something, user testing, that's where the value comes into play, because as long as you have data backing your choices, your clients can't say, I don't like orange, because you have the numbers to prove it. And that's honestly like one of my favorite things about my job, is that I am able to explain my choices. Yeah.
The numbers don't lie. So when you present them and you're backing it up with all of those finds, I can only imagine them still looking at you saying, the orange is going to be the winner here for everyone. It seems like we're already having a fan club here for you, Alex. People are saying, I love her energy. Fan club over here, started by our very own J-Lo. So I'm sure people will want to connect with you after this and even pick your brain a little bit more if they do decide to go into this space. And this is very reassuring to hear, because I myself, I'm close to Pisces, and they're always the creative type. And I'm always thinking, how can you make this musical beat? Or how can you do this graphic, beautiful design? And I'm just here could barely draw a straight line. So
no. I think there's creativity in so many things that people don't associate with like I can draw or anything like that. So to that earlier comment, to what you're saying, don't let that stop you. Don't let that stop you at all, because it really, as long as you can like back up what you created, you know you're bulletproof. So yeah, and absolutely, I will be on the chat for a little bit, so feel free to bug me. You know, I got my email up here, so let's talk.
I was about to ask, if people want to connect with you or even just get to know you a bit more, people are in the Portland area and they'd love to connect with you, maybe in a post-pandemic world. What are some ways that people can connect with you, reach out to you here in the meanwhile?
Oh my gosh, totally. Definitely bug me. I love talking shop about this kind of stuff. My email's on here. I will be on the chat for a little bit, so we can totally connect on that. I'm like trying to think of what other channels I'm on. I have a LinkedIn. It's Alex Patrón, my name. But other than that, yeah, I think just definitely like Slack me. Is that an option? I'm not sure. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm losing it.
No worries. I just dropped your LinkedIn right now. I got you. We're connected. So that was already a good and easy find here. So really just want to make sure people could get a hold of you. I think you're one of those people that I would love to go ahead and just chat with when I'm about to present to my big idea here and say, hey, you know, I need a pep talk from you, Alex. How can I go ahead and improve this? So definitely glad that we have some of your very own fans here as well. One question for you, when you found the Women Who Code community, what were some of the best places that you found resources-wise to help you enhance your own career path that you're in right now? Or maybe it was at that time that you were making this career switch.
That is such a good question. Fresh out of college, I moved to Portland and I had very little. I kind of bought myself a one-way ticket in 1 month, and I was like, okay, if I don't get a job, then I'm going back home and living with my parents. But because of Women Who Code, it's just, and again, this is like pre-pandemic world where we had, you know, events where we could go and talk. But I remember there would be certain talks that I'd be like, wait, I want to connect with this UX person. And it's kind of like once you open the door with one person, it's exponential because they know other people. And, you know, if you sit down with someone, it's vouching for someone who you know their face, you can talk to them. There's such a difference to that between like just sending a resume. I think my advice to everyone who's ever looking for a job is be personable. You know, like a face is memorable. Whether it's like a silly meme or making a joke or having some kind of like connection, that's super important because then you become memorable. So for me, Women Who Code it opened doors for me. A good example is I'm totally blanking out on the name right now, but there's a school in Portland that sells like secondhand computers and teaches a lot of courses. I'm totally blanking out on it. Someone's got to help me on this one. But it has courses, and because of that, I went to it was like programming like an Arduino to make like a beatboxing tool. And because yes, Code Academy. Is it Code Academy? I think it is. Yeah, there we go. But because of that, I was able to sit next to people who were like, hey, you know, like we have an agency, we're looking for a designer. And it's kind of like once you put the foot in the door, it kind of like ripples on. If you do a good job, people will vouch for you, and it's amazing. Code Academy, they're an incredible like establishment. It's just a community resource that's like incredible. So I totally miss those mixers so much. But like I said, I think reaching out is the biggest thing. And hey, if you guys are looking for a resource, maybe I have it. You never know. There's a saying that's like, everyone you meet knows something you don't know. So yeah, just taking that to heart. Anyone can teach you something. So
wow. I'm going to add philosopher now to your resume, your extensive resume here already. Just going real deep here, real deep at the end of this talk, everyone. What we did actually have a comment come in here from Jazz saying, oh my gosh, Alex worked on Zelle. One of my old clients was a bank, and one of my first projects out of college was to update the bank's website here with the Zelle announcement. So,
oh my gosh, that's amazing. Wow, that job taught me about bank security, and that is no joke. Wow, I respect, big respect for that. That was a tough job. Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, that's a great example. Looking at my resume, you see something, we can connect, and now I'm like, I want to hear more. Tell me more gossip about your Zelle experience. That's awesome. My gosh, that was such a fun project. That was really, really cool.
such a small world. I know we're going to be, it's getting to the end of the evening here, or late in the evening for some folks here. So I do want to allow at least, one more question or comment here from the folks before we start letting you guys go to the rest of the conference here and enjoy your time. But Alex, overall, I think, you have a great fan base here. I'm sure people will still reach out to you after all of this if we don't hear from more of them here. But any last words you want to leave here with the audience?
Oh man, that's a lot of pressure. I would just say, do not be intimidated by, I want to say glass ceilings, but don't be intimidated by what you see around you. If there's one thing I've ever learned, I don't want to say fake it till you make it, but believe in yourself in such a way that maybe you didn't have that before, but you should aspire to greater things always. So, yeah.
I love it. You're one of those people that I feel like there's a saying, and I might be butchering it. You want to be an elevator for others. You're going up in this world, but you always want to come back down to lift others up with you. And I think that's the beauty about your talk here, as well as about this just community overall here of Women Who Code. So being here for each other, giving each other the advice, just like the advice that Alex has been giving here, and supporting one another throughout this journey of ours here. But that was all of the questions here on our end. So I'll go ahead and drop your LinkedIn as well so people can continue to connect with you here, Alex. But thank you so much for an amazing talk here.
Oh my gosh, Kat, thank you. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, you were an ace at this. So everybody, thank you so much for joining and awesome questions. And you all have a great night. I will be on the chat and we can talk. Good night, everyone.
Night, everyone.